rock and roll. Okay, so we're live. Welcome back to the Magic Minds podcast. I'm Matt Burke. You're watching and listening to the Liberties #1 podcast. The podcast is all about stories that have the power to inspire. I have an inspirational lady on the show today. Her name is Jan Keating. Jan, what's the crack?
The crack is good.
The crack is good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's a difficult question. I don't know. Maybe I might leave that question out going forward. How are you? Because we're after been sitting here for the last few minutes. We were doing some breath work. We're getting into the zone, and then I come on and ask, "How are you doing?" I know how she's doing. We're sitting here for 20 minutes. So that for the next show, that's getting cut out here. I've asked Jan to come on because Jan is a pal of mine. We're in a group together. Jan is what's known as a naturopath. So interest in holistic remedies. Is that do it justice if I say that?
Yeah, well, a naturopath is, think GP of natural medicine. So basically, we work with all kinds of different conditions, people with all kinds of different things, and then we use natural things. So that could be plants. So I'm actually specialised in herbal medicine. So plant medicine is a big part of the work that I do, but also other nutrients and food and stress levels and people's work and emotional life and really everything.
Right. So for me, I've known lots of naturopaths over the years, but I've never been drawn to interview or sit down with anyone until I came across Jan. We're in a group together, as I say, and as Jan just spoke into there in that first few minutes of what she just said, she's interested in the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual bodies, and you see it in a different way. And I love that because I've been listening to some of the stuff that you've put into our group and the stuff you share, and it feels like I'm sitting down and I'm going to go into Aladdin's cave. There's going to be so many nuggets of wisdom because I've got lots of questions and to be typical of what people want to know out there. So it's amazing that we have the medical model if you're interested in that, but I love the work that you do, that we have an alternative option. It's not that versus that, but this is a lovely viable option, and you cover all the bodies, as I said in there, the 4 bodies. So before we get into it, and I'm going to rob a Paul Condon question, what excites you at the moment? What are you excited about in the world?
I think I'm most excited about the work that I get to do. It just feels like such an honor to do what I do every day, to sit with people, just, so that people have somewhere to be heard. Sometimes people just don't even get heard. They don't even sit with themselves. They don't give time to just be for a minute. So just the ability to sit with people and to share things that I learn. I'm still learning every day. I think, we all keep learning as we go along. And yeah, I find that really amazing that I actually get to do that. I'm also excited about the fact that I think people are becoming more aware and realizing that there are other options out there. Even though we don't think it, actually 80% of the world's population still rely on plants for their main source of medicine. But we've kind of, over the last 100 years, gone into a different model, and we think that that's sort of the only model and the main model. And I think now that's starting to come around a bit more, and people are starting to realize that there are other options, or that there are other things they can do to help themselves feel better besides take a medicine or a drug, for example.
I love the fact that when I ask you what are you excited about, the thing that you're most excited about is the thing that you do, or what people may call their work. You're excited. You don't have to go anywhere else for your excitement because, okay, they've got family and friends and that's excites you, but what really lights you on fire is your naturopath, your practice, your clients, the work that you do, the service that you're putting out into the world.
Yeah, I feel blessed that I get to do this. But that was a choice. I wasn't always working in this field, although I have been now for the last 14 years. I've been in practice. Before that, I was in international business, but always, because my passion has actually always been medicine and natural medicine. So even when I was working in international business, I made sure that it was most of the time in sort of the medical field, but it had to be non-invasive. So not for any drug companies, but for a diagnostic company. That was really my very first role, actually, was in international marketing in Germany for actually Randux Laboratories, so the diagnostic side of things. And then I worked for an orthopedic company looking after international markets. So I was really passionate about medicine all along, but I kind of thought back then I wanted to do business and I wanted to travel. And so, so my first degree, my first study was actually European Studies, which was languages, and then I did languages and business, and then went into those various roles. But I always just had this calling. I just knew I had to go back and study natural medicine. So I was very lucky to grow up with a dad who had, I'm going to start getting emotional now, sorry.
Love it.
Oh, straight into the heart.
I love it. Love it.
So,
what was your dad's name, by the way?
His name was Bernard.
Bernard. Okay, so Bernard's obviously here.
I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he's around a lot of the time, actually. So, it was actually through him. Like, I remember back even at 14 and 15, you know, he sort of questioned everything. He was a vet, a conventionally trained vet, and there came a point when he became quite disillusioned with just the tools that were available, and he just thought there must be more, and he started asking a lot of questions and looking into things. So he was like way ahead of the curve with just even a lot of the things we talk about now from a human medical perspective. You know, he was talking about trans fats like 30 years ago, and you know, he always questioned things. So we grew up learning to question and to know that there were lots of different approaches to things, and maybe everything isn't always as it seems. And so I remember, so his passion, and obviously I had this passion too, you know, but his passion sort of obviously helped me to be aware of my own, and just this great respect for natural things and the natural world. I remember one day we were walking with my dad and a few other family members, and it was a really hot sunny day, and I remember we were walking along this pretty isolated road. You know, we went for a walk on this hill, and the sun had been shining for a couple of days, so you know the way sometimes the tarmac gets a little bit softer. And he called us over, and he was like, oh my goodness, look at this. And there was literally a little piece of the road, a piece of tarmac, like a little chunk of tarmac sitting here. And then this fern, this tiny little fern, had like literally pushed up, and it had pushed this piece of road, literally tarmac, out of the way so that it could come up and grow out into the light. And I was like, wow, I just thought, my gosh, like the energy. So obviously this delicate little fern, you know, what is it emitting that allows it to push this chunk of road to the side so that it can actually come out into the light? And I remember that moment being really significant to me, thinking, wow, these plants, like, they have so much power. What else can they do? This is amazing.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a moment I remember very well.
Brilliant. So your dad, Bernard, seemed to have a huge impact on the choices that you've made in life in regard to the path. You know, as we spoke before the podcast started, and we done a little meditation, we'll say that we're going to let our heart guide us through this interview. It seems like you are being guided by his love, and you brought that into the business marketing world, but you were still guided by that plant-based medicine approach, and it's brought you to this point here. That's had a significant impact on you. For sure. And also just to see the impact that he had on people as well. And you know, I remember, so he passed away last year in March, and I remember in his last time, like actually in hospital and before,
there was a sentence that he kept saying, and that was, if I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living will not be in vain. And yeah, so that's something now I just carry as well.
You embody.
Yeah, or try to embody.
Yeah.
So, and that was definitely something that he did, because he did a lot of work with animals, but also with humans in his later years.
Okay.
And yeah.
Wow.
So I do feel him around. I feel him around. I feel him around on my clinic days. I feel him around a lot of the time, actually. And sometimes, of course, I wish I could ask him things, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can ask him things.
Yeah. So your dad passed over March 24, my dad passed over January 24.
Okay.
So not far apart. And like you, I sat with my daughter yesterday with an interview, or the day before yesterday, and we just literally spoke about him, and tears come.
Yeah.
And that's love. It's a beautiful thing. Like literally, it's so beautiful just even watching you getting moved by that. It's beautiful.
It's just that it's that instant access. So even the other day, I was talking with my partner Darren, and his dog just passed away just 2 weeks ago, and we were just talking about how you can instantly access love by just bringing that person to mind, or that animal to mind, or it immediately brings you into your heart. Such a beautiful thing.
My dad always talked about, my dad was a painter and decorator. That's what he worked at. But similar to your dad, Bernard, he loved what he did. He just absolutely loved it. And for years I'd done lots of different jobs, trades, and worked in a hospital and all these things. But I never loved it the way he loved it, like your dad loved it. And now I do this work, the work that I do, helping people come out of place and transform from places, and I absolutely love it. And this is why I love sitting down with the likes of someone like you, that I know genuinely you love what you do. And then that gets poured into the medicine, that gets poured into the plants, that gets poured into the person. So it's an exchange of love, because they're coming because they don't feel like they're reconnected to the love inside themselves, or not connected to love. And then they go to you, and you've got these different modalities to share with them, and the different remedies, which is amazing. How would you describe naturopath? Talk about some of that, what it is, what it looks like, from your perspective.
I suppose as a naturopath, you look at the whole system. You look at everything in connection. So, we don't necessarily see the heart as being disconnected from the brain, or, we don't look at just the foot on its own. We look at the whole system together. So, everything is connected. And so, so I guess when somebody comes in, first of all, I just listen to what they have to say, and at the same time, I'm getting a sense of the person. I'm looking at them overall. How do they look? How do they present themselves? We're looking at literally all aspects: their energy, their bodily function, their mind, what's going on around them every day, their stress levels, are they exercising? We look at literally all aspects to support the body. So I suppose, again, everybody's absolutely an individual, and everybody is different. So the whole one size fits all thing, it just doesn't apply. Certain people might be on medicines, they might be on medication. So obviously we'd always take that into account. And then anything that I would give them would be very much working around what they're already on, or seeing, can they maybe, can they go back to the GP? Can they look at certain things that maybe they don't need to be on anymore? Because sometimes that can happen, that people are on medicines that something maybe was prescribed like 10 years ago, and they don't necessarily need to still be on that. So, helping the right questions to be asked, let's say, in that whole area of things. I guess for everybody, most things come down to the gut. Like the gut has a really important role to play. So probably for every person, I will be very conscious of what's going on with their gut. So before a person even comes to see me, I would send them out a questionnaire, and that questionnaire goes through literally all of their bodily systems and helps to get them thinking about just things that they might be experiencing. And again, because we don't necessarily put different things together. So let's say if I decide I want to go to the naturopath and, you know, I have headaches, let's say that's the thing, then, you know, it mightn't dawn on me to say that actually, you know, I'm not going to the loo every day, or, you know, so basically the questionnaire helps people look at all the systems.
Okay.
And then it just gets them thinking about things. And then I'll always also ask them to keep a food diary of everything they eat and drink and all medicines they take for 3 days, you know, including one weekend day. And that just gives me an idea of, you know, what they're taking into their bodies, which of course also has such an impact on our health. And yeah, so what were we saying? What do I do?
What does it look like? You know
What's it look like?
what I loved what you said there was that it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's not a one fit all.
No.
And I love how you speak into the fact that everything is linked. People may think, oh, well, I've got headaches, I've got a migraine, so that's up in me head. And then you're like, how's your bowel movements? What's your hydration levels? What's the other systems doing?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like when people have a pain in the back, they sometimes think it's just me back, when it could be hamstrings, it could be glutes, it could be shoulder. Yeah, yeah. I love that holistic helicopter view.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's where the answers lie. And, you know, it's like, it's that whole thing. If you have, you know, 5 thumbtacks in your foot, you kind of have to take out all 5. Like, even if you take out 4, but you've still got 1 in there, you're still going to be uncomfortable. So you have to take all of them out. And so therefore you have to look at everything and and make sure that we include all aspects really of, because really health, like the thing is, right, the body is always moving towards wholeness. So we know that. So we know that thing, you cut your finger, you don't even think about it. You just know, because, you know, we learned that. We've experienced it so many times. You cut your finger, it repairs itself. So that's not something we even question. We know that that's where the body is always going. And then it's something often that we're doing, or something that we're thinking, or something that's in our everyday that's preventing that process from happening. And so as a naturopath, I guess I'm kind of like a detective, and part of the role is to try and figure out, okay, what are the things for this particular person's life and experience? What are the things that are maybe standing in the way of them moving towards wholeness?
I love that. That's a super analogy. You cut your finger, the body, the systems just wants to create healing, homeostasis, throw some platelets on it, clear it all up. Knows what to do. But what are we doing? What's going on? And unconsciously, obviously, are we doing to get in the way of that?
Exactly.
What are we putting in the way with? And I love what you said there. What way you thinking? What way you acting? What way you surround the environments? That's a brilliant approach.
And what choices are we making? You know, because, and that's one of the other things. It's like, it's, you know, if you can help people to become aware of maybe certain choices that they're making, and then just gently help them to make changes there. So, and again, it's also, the other thing is, as I said, everybody is an individual. So, you know, there's no point in me saying exactly the same thing to every person. So, you know, you have to meet a person where they are. So, you know, I might see, and I think that's part of it. You can see that person in their whole state. Like, so when somebody comes to me, I can see them whole and healed and fixed, and that's just natural. I just see that. So then, but there's no point in me, you know, seeing that the person is here and talking as if they're here. It's about accompanying them to get to that point. So it's like step by step. And then, you know, some people can take on more than others at a time. So then you judge and see what you know, it's literally step by step. You don't want people to be overwhelmed either. That's the other thing.
I love that. I love that. And when I say this, and I'm not going that versus that, but I'm using discernment, and you've got a choice. When I went to the doctors, to my local doctor with a problem years ago, you know, I had difficulties going on. I think I was in there 5 or 10 minutes, and there was a medicine produced. It was like, take this, you'll have to do this. I was like, what? And they go, yeah, this will work, you might do it. Didn't ask me any of those questions. Now, I'm not saying they're bad, they're wrong, but I had a chaotic system going on. I needed someone to help me. What you said, your words, you wanted to investigate, you were problem solving, you were looking at a whole. But so to know that there's other options out there, and this will help you in all parts of your life, this approach.
Yeah, for
this
sure.
said problem that you're coming with, you're going to look at the whole, and this will be supportive of all of your life.
Yeah, exactly, because that's how we get to feel better. By it's the thumbtacks again in the foot, so we have to look at all of the aspects. So it's like, you know, I suppose this is one thing that I feel, again, really grateful in this model, is that, you know, we get to spend time with people. Like GPs, they don't get to spend time with people.
Yeah,
they have 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 6 minutes, I think.
So
once.
even that piece of information you got a question, are you being fully seen, heard, understood in that time?
I think they do their very best in that time
Yeah.
that they
I'm not
have.
shitting on anyone.
No, of course. And it's just, I suppose, with our model, we're really lucky because, and I remember having a chat with a guy, with actually a surgeon at one stage, and I remember him saying to me, my gosh, like, you're so lucky you get to spend this time with these people. So, because they had like 20 minutes maximum for a consultation. So, yeah, so like usually when somebody comes, I would spend 2 hours actually in my first session. So some of my other colleagues spend maybe an hour and a half, but we have that time, and you need that time really to get a full sense of what's going on for a person, what's going on with them.
I think the medical model, and again, I'm not dogging on the medical model, but it sometimes can soothe a patient's impatience and their urge to just get rid of the pain, get rid of the problem, sort of fix it quickly.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
Here is in service of you. Okay, let's have a look at this. Let's be patient. Let's soothe the nervous system down. Because the way you're speaking and the way you're acting around me now, and it's the way you're explaining, is very soothing and calming for the system. And if somebody's coming in with a said problem, whatever it is, the chances are that the body is a little bit discombobulated. There's inflammation. There's a disorder in the systems.
Yeah,
and
disease.
a dis-ease. There's an unease. Or you're going, oh, let me help you. Let me sort, because you know when you've rang the doctors, or you meet someone on the phone and they're like, yeah, it's all like question. It's all like heightens up the nervous system. What people need is the approach like this. I'm just saying, does this over here or does this over here?
And again, of course, as we said, like sometimes you absolutely need that immediate painkiller, or you need, you need the emergency approach, or you need, like, sometimes you need that. But in the longer term, if you want to really have healing, then you need sometimes the combined approach or the natural approach on its own.
And I love what you said there, that your body has an innate ability to restore homeostasis in it. And if you can contribute to that, or whoever is, that's because the healing and the process can start at that point, even just ringing you up for a consultation. And
even just thinking, making that decision, making that choice to say, actually, I'm going to give some attention to this. I'm going to actually do something about what I'm feeling right now. So just making that decision for yourself to actually say, I'm going to go and see somebody. I'm not going to ignore this or squash it down anymore.
Yeah, you become aware. I heard yesterday on a podcast, or the other day on a podcast, and I didn't know this, and I thought I knew a lot about the gut, and you spoke into it. The gut is the most biodiverse organ of all living species on this planet.
It's amazing.
It's
We
the
have-
most diverse.
It can be, and that's where we want to make sure that it is, that the diversity is there, because of course a lot of things also impact the bacteria and the microbiome in our gut.
Like what?
So we have, for example, we have more bacteria in our organism and in our system than we have cells, like way more. So we wouldn't necessarily think that. So for example, stress can really impact the gut microbiome. Too much caffeine, alcohol, certain medicines, the contraceptive pill, obviously antibiotics will impact the gut flora, so it's always important, if you have to take some once in a while, it is necessary, but you know, if you have to do that, that you then really work afterwards to help restore the gut bacteria. But we always have to be conscious of our gut bacteria, and make sure we're taking in things that help to balance it. So because the bacteria does so many jobs as well, you know, it does so many jobs in the gut. So obviously it helps us to digest. It makes some of our B vitamins, it makes some of our vitamin K, it makes serotonin. So 80% of our happy hormone is actually manufactured in the gut by gut bacteria. It's really important for immunity, for example. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. What are the typical things that people come to? I know we spoke privately, and you get a kind of a varied of things that people, but what are the common kind of things that people are coming to you, if that's okay to speak into?
Yeah.
And what's the remedies or strategies that you would use?
Okay, maybe we'll zone in on one or two of those. Yeah, people genuinely come with all kinds of things. They really do. From, you know, particular things, let's say diseases that have certain labels, to just feeling tired or feeling, you know, digestive discomfort, or, you know, to maybe having diabetes or having osteoporosis, or
Irritable
having
bowel or something.
irritable bowel, or having anxiety. You know, people come with a whole myriad of different conditions and things. So zoning in on one of those. So let's take, for example, let's take osteoporosis, for example. Okay, which is a weakening of the bones, and so often women are, mostly women, but actually men also, are told that they have osteoporosis or they have osteopenia, so that they have a weakening of the bones. So then, you know, they have various options from the medical perspective, you know, various medications that are suggested, or injections. And often I have people who come and say that they don't necessarily really want to go down that road, and, you know, what are the options? What are the other things that they can do? And there really is a lot that you can do to strengthen your bones. So obviously, certain vitamins. So again, the conventional route is to maybe give something like like a calcium supplement or whatever.
Chewing tablet and that, yeah.
Which, again, there's a lot more to that picture than just sort of taking in calcium, because the body can't use that necessarily in the way that we think it should. So, for example, you know, when it comes to vitamins, so let's take, for example, calcium, and then let's take vitamin D. So vitamin D is very necessary for the strength of the bones, because it helps the body to absorb calcium from the food that we take in. But it doesn't have any control over where that calcium actually goes. So when we are taking in calcium, we want to make sure that it's going into the bones to strengthen the bones, and that it's not going to go and get lodged in the soft tissues, where you can end up having maybe kidney stones or gallstones, or even calcification of the arteries.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
So we want to make sure that when we take in that calcium, we're taking it along with vitamin D, which helps the body to use the calcium, and then really importantly, vitamin K2. And vitamin K2 is basically what helps to make sure that that calcium goes into the bones. So it has a role in well, vitamin D has a role in the production of what's called osteocalcin, which is produced by the osteoblasts, which actually help to strengthen the bones. But osteocalcin, again, can't do its job without vitamin K2.
Wow.
So vitamin D and vitamin K2, and so often I see people who are doing their best and they want to do what's right for their bones, so they're taking their vitamin D, but they don't know about the really important role of MK7 form of vitamin K2.
Wow.
So vitamin A as well has a very important role in that whole process of actually how the body takes calcium and puts it into the bones. So again, vitamin A, something that people are not necessarily getting. It's really rich in, actually more so in animal sources. It is also present in plants, but really we need it in the retinol form. So that comes from cod liver oil, for example. I mean, most of us, our grandmothers used to take cod liver oil. It was a thing that people did back then, and that's partly the reason, because it's very rich in vitamin A, as is liver, for example. So so those three things together, calcium and magnesium. So calcium on its own as well is not a good idea. It needs to also be in the presence very much of magnesium. And ideally, we want to take in our calcium and magnesium in the form of vegetables and fruit, because then it's in the presence of other minerals as well.
Gotcha.
So like boron, for example, silica. So we have plants. So there are a number of very rich plants that we would use as herbalists. So then putting on the herbalist hat, so obviously you're doing all of these things nutritionally, and then you're also taking herbs. So as a herbalist, I would usually prepare a sort of magic formula, a concoction of herbs in a bottle of tinctures, but it can also be taken as a tea. Herbs can be given as a tea, or they can be done as, powders in capsules. But some of the herbs that are really rich for the bones are, for example, horsetail. And actually, I wish I had a picture to show you here, because this is another thing about plants that's so fascinating. There is something called the doctrine of signatures. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but basically it's this idea that there are hints in the natural world for us to realize. So for example, certain plants look like the organ that they help. Certain plants look like the job that they're supposed to do. They give us clues. So for example, like walnuts. If you ever look at a walnut, it's
like
literally like two hemispheres of the brain. Yeah.
Wow. So then the fats in that is good for
helping to
and
it helps boost
hormone,
serotonin actually.
So
it really helps the brain. But another one is the herb horsetail, which is equisetum. So horsetail, it's a plant that grows, you see it on the side of the road around this time of year actually, when especially in areas that are more moist, and it literally looks like a spine. I don't know if you know that plant, but it literally, if you look up an image of horsetail, the plant horsetail, it literally looks like the vertebrae of a spine, and it's extremely helpful in remineralizing the skeleton, so the teeth and the bones, because it has all of those components that we need, the magnesium, the calcium, it has silica, so it's really helpful. And then simple things like, I say simple, I should say common.
Yeah.
They're far from simple, they're just so amazing. Like dandelion leaf, nettle, alfalfa is another herb that's really beneficial for the bones. So
Brilliant.
what else? So vitamin B12 as well is another really important thing. So vitamin B12 and folate are necessary for a chemical process in the body called methylation. And methylation is very important in the formation of bones. And obviously when I say bones, I mean our teeth as well. And our hair and our skin. So vitamin B12, that's a whole really interesting
we could get into
area.
the MTHR,
The MTHFR,
some people may have that gene inside of themselves.
Exactly.
They find, and high levels of inflammation.
Yeah, so MTHFR, about 20% of the population have what are called SNPs on that genetic pathway, which can mean they have challenges in that whole area of methylation. So once you know about that, then you just support that. And the way of supporting that is making sure that you get, for example, that you have enough folate. So enough folate and enough vitamin B12 and vitamin B6 as well in some instances. But so the thing again about vitamin B12, and then this gets me onto the topic of, let's say, supplements, because when people are taking supplements, they don't necessarily know that there are all these different versions of things, and that it's important to get what suits your body. So for example, with vitamin B12, we have sort of, let's call it the cheaper version, which is cyanocobalamin. So it's where cobalamin is linked to basically a cyanide molecule. And that's very hard for the body to use, but it is cheaper to produce. So it's in a lot of supplements. Now, they're getting better and it's not in as many anymore. So you're much better to go for a different form of B12. So you have, for example, methylcobalamin, where the cobalamin has already been, it's pre-methylated, so your body doesn't have to actually do that process. But then for certain people, not always people with MTHFR, because they can do very well on the methylated form, but some have a sensitivity to pre-methylated B12. It's too strong for their system, and so they need to go to the step before that, because it can actually cause you to feel more anxious if you are sensitive to that form. So then there's two other forms. There's adenylcobalamin and hydroxycobalamin. So what I tend to normally recommend for people, again, I'll assess how sensitive is this person, but I tend to go for maybe the hydroxo or the adenyl forms definitely over the cyano form and over the methylated form. And then you have as well, for that pathway, you have folate, which is so important as well for the bones, so important for the tissue of the gut, so important for our mood. And again, traditionally, we've always learned that you're supposed to take folic acid, and everybody hears about folic acid being good things to take. However, folic acid is the synthetic form, and that actually blocks our folate receptors. So folate is the natural form that we take in from plants, and it's what our body needs.
So folic acid is the synthetic product.
So if you're taking in the synthetic product, it can block the folate receptors, which means you can't then necessarily use the natural folate that's coming in. You can't absorb it. So for some people, they get away with that. That's fine for many, many people. But for a good portion of people, that's problematic. So they really, if you're going to, this is the thing that sometimes I do get cross about, because if you're going to go and spend your money and buy supplements, and you really are going to be really diligent and you're going to take them every day, you want to make sure what you're taking is actually helping you and active in your system and doing what you want it to do. So, and
that it's bioavailable. People don't seem to understand the bioavailability of products, where you have the plants, and as you spoke about quite rightly, with one vitamin will be in company with the other, and it helps the absorption process and the benefits, synergy. When then you take another product, i.e. say B12 or methylated B12 or any of those other products, they may not be bioavailable. They don't have.
Yeah, so it again, it depends on your particular system, but also that's where your gut bacteria is also very important, because you need your gut bacteria to be balanced and to be right. You want your gut, you don't want inflammation in the gut. You want the gut to be able to absorb the nutrients as well. So yeah. How did we get on it?
We went from
bones
osteoporosis, osteoclast.
To methylation.
See, this is the thing what people need to understand when you go to the doctor, and you women that may not have had a lot of calcium in their teenage years, and they have osteoporosis, brittle bones, or softening of the bones, it'll be given maybe a tablet of calcium, and you say there's many other ways, and that's not knocking it, there's many other ways to look at this.
Well, I think it's, again, you have to make sure that you're giving your body all of the nutrients so that
Love
it
that.
can do its best for your bones, because it's meant to. That's what it does. Like, it's designed. It's really our bodies are so clever. The other thing that's really important is, again, stress, because stress will raise cortisol, and when you raise cortisol, you raise the acidity in the body. And again, this is really important when it comes to bones, because this clever system that we have, our clever body, keeps itself, as you said, in homeostasis. It keeps itself in this very narrow little margin when it comes to the pH of the body. So the pH, the acidity alkaline balance. So when the body starts to get too acidic, this happens from our diet. You know, too many grains, too many acidic forming foods, too much alcohol, for example. When our body starts to get acidic, it happens also from too much stress. Cortisol raises acidity. Then the body will kick in its really intelligent buffering system. And so its buffering system, to really simplify it, what the buffering system does is it will take things from the body to help neutralize the acidity and, you know, bring it down. And how it does that is to leach calcium or sometimes magnesium from the bones. So therefore, you know, you have a stressed system, then you have a system that is actually needing to take the minerals out of the bones to try and calm it down. So that's
So the body becomes catabolic.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So basically, what you have to do, obviously looking at the stress, looking at also maybe alkalizing your body by making sure you have enough good quality fruit and vegetables which are alkaline, and that you then sometimes you may need to take in electrolytes, for example. You may need to take a little bit of potassium, or in some instances, if you're not, you know, you can actually check the pH of your urine. You want to keep your urine between about 7 and 7.5. That keeps you sort of in the right environment for keeping your bones healthy. To do that, sometimes you might need to take something like a tiny amount of bread soda, for example, because that will alkalize the body as well. So bread soda, which is this like thing that like our grandparents as well would have often taken.
Would they? Yeah. I didn't know this. I knew they use it for cleaning and.
Oh my gosh, yes. So again,
I'm loving this, by the way. I'm lit up
Okay,
inside here. This is fucking incredible. I'm like, yeah, tell me more.
So bread soda, which is such a basic thing, really, sodium bicarbonate, it has an effect of alkalizing the system. And when you alkalize the system, then you're not losing as much calcium, for example, in the urine. So like literally half a teaspoon in some water in the early part of the morning can help to alkalize the system. Also, by the way, it's an amazing remedy if you're having a huge histamine response as well. So, you know, sometimes we get histamine response as in
Summertime, hay fever. Brilliant.
Hay fever, or sometimes for people something they've eaten that causes them to have that response.
Allergies.
Bread soda actually will immediately quell that histamine response as well.
Never knew that.
And acidity, you know, when you get that kind of acid reflux, for example, assuming it's from too much acid, because sometimes we get the same symptoms from too little stomach acid, but often that burning is from too much stomach acid.
Right.
Then taking a small amount of bread soda will help with that. So, yes.
That is a whole lot of information. That's incredible. We went from osteoporosis, bone density, osteoblasts, vitamins, minerals, right up to histamine and calming people's allergies down there.
Yeah, so actually, because histamine is a topic I like, because again, okay, so going back to the gut. So this is one of the things I see sometimes as well in clinic that people are not necessarily aware of. So often people will go and get themselves a probiotic, which is a good thing to do often. So they'll buy some probiotic in the health store. Again, for their particular system. So some people are very sensitive to histamine, or they may be in what we call histamine intolerant, in that their body is not able to clear the histamine quickly enough from their system. So sometimes there, you know, again, we learn to do things like to have kefir or to have kombucha or something that's fermented, because it has those lactobacilli bacteria, which is really beneficial.
I used to grow that. I loved the kefir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you make it with milk or with what?
Yeah, I used to get natural milk or unpasteurized milk.
Okay.
Oh, it's incredible.
Okay. So, and for a lot of people that's fine, but then for certain people they're not able to clear their histamine quickly enough because they're lacking an enzyme called DAO enzyme, or they may have an overproduction of histamine in the gut. So again, this comes down to the balance of the bacteria. So if, for example, you have certain pathogenic strains of bacteria in the gut, they by their normal existence produce histamine. And if your body is not very fast at clearing that histamine, you can get this sort of overwhelm, where you're overwhelmed with histamine, and then you get these symptoms like a runny nose or itchy eyes or itchy skin, or so that's where again the choice of probiotic is very important, because you may want to choose strains of probiotic that are not histamine forming. So there are different types of bacteria. Sort of general run-of-the-mill probiotics will have kind of a broad range. Some of those will be histamine forming, some of them not. But you can also buy probiotics that are low histamine, like Lactobacillus plantarum, rhamnosus. Those type of bacteria are less histamine producing, and they're better tolerated by most people. So where did I get there?
We were talking about histamines and that response and gut bacteria. Brilliant.
Yeah. So often as well, when people come, I would do a stool analysis. So where basically we would take a sample. They would obviously do that at home. Get the kit sent, and they do it. They get the kit sent, and they will take a sample, and then we send that to the lab, and then we look and see what bacteria are there. Do they have enough of the beneficial strains of bacteria? Do they have some pathogenic strains that shouldn't be there? And then we'll use certain herbs to help get rid of those particular bacteria while balancing the gut flora overall. They may have an overgrowth of yeast, for example, candida or other molds. We can check for gluten sensitivity, for example. We can check for histamine levels in the gut. We can check for IgA, which is the basic immune function of the gut.
IgA1.
So that's something I do with a lot of people actually, is just to look at what's going on in the gut, because it's so core to the overall health.
Yeah.
Everything comes down to the gut. So,
and there's more neurological or neural connections in the gut than there is in the brain, am I right?
Yes.
It's called the second brain. Like the first brain.
Exactly. So it has a huge impact on the brain. So if you have imbalance in your gut, or you have gut inflammation, you will very often have, so for example, if somebody's coming with anxiety or depression, I will always look at the gut, because there's such a link between, like for example, but down to histamine. So let's say you have a particular strain of bacteria in your gut, maybe Klebsiella, for example, that shouldn't be there. Those strains of bacteria are very often high histamine producing, and that high histamine will cause anxiety. So it's very linked. So if you maybe when you think anxiety, you're thinking only of your head, but it's so linked to the gut.
So when people come to you and they're struggling with anxiety and they want to go down a different route, so a first port of call sometimes is looking at the gut biome, the stool analysis, then obviously then the questionnaire that you do that looks at the whole.
Well, even the simple basic thing, are you going to the loo every single day? Do you empty your bowel every single day? Do you miss a day? Or, that's so important, because...
Is that quite telling, is it?
It's just really important, because if a person, it's just, think of your waste disposal system. You know, if you imagine you're in a really hot country, and you know, we won't say Ireland because it wouldn't really happen here, but let's say you're in a
Spain.
Well, yeah, a really hot, or even a hot, damp country, right? And there's a bin strike, let's say. So all the bags of rubbish are all lining up on the side of the road, and they're just there in the heat and the damp, and they're putrefying basically, and yeah, that's not a great scene. So that's what's happening in your tummy if you're not actually going to the loo every day. That is such an important part of our health, because remember, the body as well reabsorbs the liquid back into the system. And you know, if you have any kind of leaky gut or anything going on, your body is just not ridding itself of those toxins, and they're sort of recirculating in the system. So it's such a simple thing, making sure that you're going to the loo every day. And if you're not, then you need to do something about that.
Look into that.
So yeah, and that can be something as simple as adding more fiber to your diet. Are you getting enough vegetables? You know, maybe adding some ground flaxseed to your diet, or you know, then things that we do know, like eating 2 figs a day. I find that really effective for people. 2 dried figs.
Yeah.
Or obviously prunes, but moving the body as well. Then we come back to that whole other area of movement and exercise. It's just so important. So literally walking will stimulate peristalsis, which is that, you know, muscle movement in the gut, which helps you to go to the loo.
Yeah.
And then the emotional side again. So it's like this, it's often this kind of vicious circle. So, you know, people are holding on, you know. What are you holding on to? Why are you holding on? And just getting people to even think about that for a minute. Oh, okay. Oh, I never really thought about that. I never thought about that something happening in my body can be linked to something I'm feeling emotionally, you know. So sometimes I ask 2 really valuable questions in clinic. Number 1, if this symptom could talk, what would it say? And then the second one is, what would it tell you that it needs to feel better? Those 2 questions are so telling. So when a person really sits and thinks and tunes into what's going on, answers come, and they realize, okay, wow.
If this problem, this thing had a voice, what would it say? And what would it tell you it needs right now? Giving it a voice.
Yeah, that's very, very, very helpful.
Like, I've worked in a hospital for a long time, and I've been to many doctors over years, and no one has ever asked that question. And that's really getting in touch with the body and the voice that it can have if we allow it to speak. That might be hard for people, but
yeah, sometimes it is, and they have to think about it. And so sometimes I'll just let them go away and think about that. But then it's an exercise, and it just reminds us of the connection between what's going on in our body and what's going on for us emotionally and in the mind. So, you know, always as well, just giving people some kind of breathing exercise, or even like 15-minute yoga nidra. I find people love it as well, because sometimes it's new for people. They're not used to doing any kind of relaxation like that. So that
breathwork, the breathwork I use, it's called conscious connected breathing. It's that rhythmic circular breaths. That also changes the pH in your blood. It makes the body become more alkaline. It changes the gases. It's called respiratory alkalosis.
Yes.
So it changes the body from an acidic state to a more alkaline state, and then the body is less likely to house certain pathogens in that state.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting, and I think all that breath work that you're doing is amazing, really beneficial.
Thanks.
And those videos that you've been making lately, you know, posting in our group and stuff, they're just fabulous. Just short exercises that people can do.
Yeah, it's giving people, you know, things that they can possibly do. What recommendations would you make for somebody, you know, looking at lifestyle changes, and that encompasses like physical, the mental, the nutritional things, what would you say to be, what kind of advice would you make for people, give them recommendations?
Okay, well, again, we need to look at sort of each of the different things. So first of all, movement is really important. So obviously it does not have to be running a marathon. And I actually say, like, I remind people there's a reason why a marathon is called a marathon. And, you know, that was because obviously the guy, you know, there was a battle being, I'm sure you know this story yourself, but the battle that was fought in Marathon, and the battle was won, and then a messenger ran from Marathon back to Athens, and that was the distance of a marathon, which is 26 and a half miles, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then when he got there, he dropped dead, and that's why it was called a marathon. So a marathon is, I know that's a bit extreme.
No, but like,
it's a lot to do for your body. So we don't have to go to massive extremes.
But Jan, there's people gonna be screaming there at the screen going,
they are.
yeah, but it's healthy for you. Okay, calm it down there. 26 miles to put your body through that is a stressor. I know it may elicit some healthy things inside of you, but it is a stressor. Like lifting weights, pulling things, pushing things, it has a cumulative effect on the body.
Yeah, so again, it's about balance. Everything is about variety, moderation, and balance.
Yeah, homeostasis, balance, what we said earlier.
So, you know, if you want to do that, you do a marathon.
No
that's fine,
judgment,
but I'm
by
just
the way.
saying it's a lot for the body to do that.
Yeah.
So, but doing some running, and you know, it just doesn't have to be that length. Doing some running, doing walking, doing like
movement.
One of the biggest things that I say for people, like, because it's something they can do at home and it's really easy, and you know, even if you're older and you don't necessarily have the strength, is a rebounder. Buying like one of those little trampolines where, okay, sometimes you might need if you've got difficulty with balance, you might need the one with the handles.
Yeah.
But they are the best things ever, because even literally standing on it and just barely moving will engage all the muscles in your body and move your lymph. That will help to move.
And it
your
also
lymph.
talks into what you talked earlier, bone density. You're putting resistance on the bone. You don't have to go do 26 miles. You bounce on a trampoline or something that bops you up and down, whatever. What did you call that thing again?
A rebounder.
A rebounder. That pulls muscle on the bone, creates osteoclast.
And it improves circulation, which helps all of our body, obviously.
And it can be fun. And then that produces serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin.
Exactly. So various forms of exercise, you basically just find what it is that's fun for you, what it is that you like. Again, it's the gym for some people, it's swimming in the sea for other people, or it's walking, it's running. You know, if you're walking, then, you know, do your road walk, maybe pick 2 telephone poles and just go really, really fast for those 2 telephone poles, then go back to, you know, normal walking, just like kind of changing the intensity as you go.
I think it's called fartlek. That's called fartlek training.
Okay.
So you run from one point to the other, the next point to the other, and then you slow it down.
Yeah.
It's a really fun thing to do, actually.
Yeah.
Fartlek training, I think it's called.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong, but I think it is.
I don't know. I haven't heard that before. So what else? So sorry, I want to answer the questions you're asking me, so because I'm going off on tangents. So that's the physical side. So you're moving your body. Then you're also moving the lymph. So for example, dry skin brushing, or hot and cold showers. You know, again, anything that improves the circulation. Because if you just think about it, you want the blood, you want the oxygen to go to everywhere in your body. You know, the full circulation, and then what we call the microcirculation. So that's, you know, making sure that the blood gets into like the little tiny vessels, which is so important for our brain health. It's so important for our eye health, for our cardiovascular health. And again, so making sure that, this is taking us off on another thing, but making sure the blood is thin enough, you know, that your blood is not too thick. So we can talk about that in a second. Yeah. A really good way to know if your microcirculation is good is to look at your toes and to see if you have hairs growing on your toes. And if you don't have any hairs growing on your toes, that could mean that you're not getting enough circulation to your extremities.
Get the shoes and socks off. Have a look at them hoofs.
So where were we? So circulation, microcirculation. So yeah, literally brushing your skin towards the heart, really effective for moving the lymph. So again, that's all about waste, allowing the waste to be taken away from the cells and to be excreted from the body. Hot and cold showers do the same thing. So that's really on the movement side. Also, very often moving, you're going outside in the fresh air and, you know, you're connecting to nature. And if we think about health, you know, it's all about energy at the end of the day. So that energy is coming from, you know, the food we eat, but it's coming from the trees and the plants around us. It's coming from the sun. It's coming from being barefoot on the ground. Grounding is so, so important. Literally taking your shoes and socks off again and walking on the grass, you know, for 15, 20 minutes, just touching a tree. There's a reason why people say hug trees, because like you're connecting with that grounding energy, you know, it changes the electromagnetic frequency of our bodies. Okay, so we said grounding, that you know, infrared light and red light is a kind of big
therapy,
thing at the moment, and it's
yeah.
really brilliant. It's really effective. But you know, we really are meant to be getting up when the sun is rising, and those sort of first 15 to 20 minutes when that red spectrum of light is there is really important for our bodies, because it wakes us up. You know, it tells us, it gets the body to produce pregnenolone, for example, which is a raw material for many of our other hormones. You know, it basically we're so connected to nature and we're signaled by these things.
Part of the circadian rhythm.
Exactly, which is...
You know, get up in the morning, see the light, the dawn phenomena, melatonin goes down, cortisol slightly rises, gets us focused.
Exactly, and that's all happening without us having to do anything except just go outside.
And that's what you said earlier from the very start. Your body knows innately what to do. It knows how to find, but we get in the way.
Exactly. So
we're trying to outsmart nature.
Mechanism. It's such a clever organism and system. And then, yeah, that red light as well in the evening time. So I find that fascinating as well, that we can get that same benefit from looking at fire burning in the evening.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
And that's how it would have been traditionally. You know, people would have been up, they would have been taking in this beautiful red light in the morning with the dawn, and then in the evening time, you know, when it's dark, they would sit around the fire and they'd be sort of staring into the fire, and that red light, we get that same benefit from actual fires. So I think it's really sad when, you know, there's this whole move away from having fires. But
you
anyway,
can do that with
topic.
You can do that red light with candle gazing.
Candle gazing as
well.
Candle
gazing is a great one, and it helps with sleeping at night, melatonin levels.
Yeah.
You know, just soothes the whole body, and then you get this kind of repair and recovery. That's the innate ability of the body.
Yeah, exactly. And also those, I think as well, from something that I read lately, that we do get that benefit as well from some of those, the pretend fires, as I call them. You know, the fires that are not actually lit.
Oh, you know, when people have central heating and then they'll just have the flames just bouncing up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
cool.
Again, it probably depends which one you have, but apparently we do get benefit from that light as well.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so
we've done
that's on that side, the physical side. The emotional side, breath work, meditation, being still. It depends on what that is for you, what works for you. You know, it might be walking in nature, it might be doing an actual listening meditation, it might be silent meditation. It really depends on what works for you as an individual, but it is so necessary to have that every day to just calm the nervous system. You know, we talked about the effect that has even on the bones. We talked about the effect that it has on the brain. It's such a necessary aspect. Then on the food side, okay, so on the food side, there are so many different diets and systems of eating. I personally really find the whole approach to like what I call really paleo type eating, like hunter-gatherer style, So lots of good quality vegetables, fruit, nuts and seeds, and then good quality meat, you know, clean as possible, ideally organic if you can, and less on the sort of carbs and grain side. Just that simple approach. And if you are 80% of the time pretty good in your eating, then you can get away with, you know, 20% of the time being, well, maybe 10% of the time, you know, having the odd treat or a day when you're not worrying about it. Yeah. And then I think if you're going to take any supplements, again, obviously we want to get as much nutrition as we can. Unfortunately, with the way a lot of our food is produced now, and just the grounds that we have, you know, a lot of the soil is depleted and stuff, sometimes we really do need to take some supplements. So I would say if you were to just kind of look at a couple of really core things, definitely fish oils. I would say cod liver oil, actually, ideally, or I suppose some, for vegan people, they would get their oils from algae. That can also be beneficial. Magnesium is really important as well, because it gets depleted so much by our diet and also by our stress systems, by the stress in the world. Like even those two core things are really beneficial and helpful to people.
Magnesium are involved in nearly, I might be wrong, nearly 400
enzymatic processes.
Enzymatic process within the body.
Yeah.
When you say magnesium, do you mean as in take it as a supplement, like as in biglycinate or magnesium citrate?
Yeah, there's so many different forms.
There's so many, and again, it's about bioavailability. I think
it is.
biglycinate is one of the best bioavailable ones, I think.
Again, it depends on why you're taking it as well.
Gotcha.
as a supplement. So ideally, again, if we were getting enough plants, and if we are getting enough plants, you know, a lot of plants are actually very rich in magnesium as well.
Wow.
But if we were to take the form, to look at the different forms, magnesium bisglycinate, for example, is really beneficial for hormonal balance. It's really beneficial for women going through sort of perimenopause or menopause, because it helps with sweats and it helps with just that whole overall hormonal balance. So bisglycinate is a very good form. Magnesium citrate as well, you know, for sleep, it can be really beneficial. It just really calms the system. So yeah, so those either of those two forms really, and just again, you know, having enough antioxidants. So what does that mean? You know, our bodies are surrounded by stressors. You know, whether that's electromagnetic frequency or it's pollutants, and you know, we need antioxidants to quench those toxins. Really, that's what they do. If you think about even just vitamin C, for example, you know, we as a human species are no longer, we used to be able to make vitamin C, but we actually don't make it anymore. And we're one of the only species, along with I think fruit bats and then some birds, that don't make their own vitamin C anymore.
Wow.
A goat, for example, will make up to 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day in its liver. And so a full-size goat is about the size of some human women. So the goat will make that itself. And that is really necessary for producing collagen, for example. And then we go back to the bones. You know, our collagen is kind of the grid that those minerals are laid down in for production of the bones. So, but vitamin C, sorry, what was I saying? Vitamin C, antioxidants, yes. So that's fine if we live in a tropical forest where we're surrounded by lots of really rich fruit and vegetables growing all around us. Then we'll get enough vitamin C from our diet.
Environment, yeah.
But otherwise we have to just take it in. So that's where you get things like, for example, the gorilla superfood powder, for example. So, you know, part of why I made that was actually to make it really easy for people to get a wide array of, you know, antioxidants and phytonutrients.
Let's grab it. Let's grab it. We have one here to show you.
So, for example,
this is the product that you made, designed.
Yes. Took me quite a while because I kept changing my mind about what should go in there. But so basically, our ancestors used to eat about 340 different species of plants just throughout the year, because they were foraging and they were picking and taking whatever was coming at whatever time around them, whatever season. We probably eat on average about 5 different types of fruit and veg now. So, you know, the majority of people, they might have carrots and peas and, you know, maybe green beans and celery, and, you know, it's a limited amount of plants, and that means then we're only getting a limited number of nutrients. So also there's the fact that people are very busy and they feel like they're just time poor, and that they just don't have the energy or the time to make really sort of nutrient dense meals and food. So I just wanted to create something that made it really, really easy. So basically what Gorilla is it's a combination of 33 very specially selected, completely organic and clean fruit, vegetables, herbs, medicinal mushrooms, spices, to give us an array of all the nutrients that we need every day through food. And you basically take it, it's 2 teaspoons in a glass of water or in your water bottle, and you just shake it, and then so it takes like 30 seconds. So it's like less than the time it takes to brush your teeth. You have given yourself a whole array of nutrients.
I'm looking at some of the names in here, some cool ones, some really powerful stuff. We have spirulina in there. We have the lion's mane. You have dandelion in there, which I love also.
I love.
You have milk thistle in there for the kidneys and the liver. Some amazing.
Acerola cherry, rosehip, acai, they're all really rich in vitamin C, for example, that we were talking about earlier. Moringa, which is a phenomenal plant.
See that there.
So moringa is
Monk
actually...
fruit.
Yeah, moringa is very rich in vitamin A, and it has more vitamin C than oranges. It's very rich in calcium. It's rich in iron. I'm having a blank. I was going to...
Moringa.
The other thing beside moringa is I specifically didn't put grasses in there. So there's no wheatgrass or
Why
barley
is that?
grass.
Is that because of the wheat?
Well, I don't believe that we're really meant to be having grasses. I really don't. Okay. Traditionally, we haven't had grasses. But barley, for example, this was more specifically around the barley grass. A lot of people actually have an issue with barley. It can cause inflammation for a lot of people. So I just wanted to leave those out, and I wanted to use something that's growing around us and that our ancestors would have used a lot of, which is nettle, for example. And so nettle and dandelion leaf and dandelion root. Dandelion is one of the most amazing herbs, and I know we didn't get a lot into the herbs. We didn't talk a lot about herbs, but dandelion is one of the most phenomenal plants.
Why? Let's talk about that. You've shared a lovely piece into the Life Being group that we're in. What makes it so special? Is that your go-to thing? Is that I love that one, because that was a question I wrote down here. What's your favorite remedy? What's your favorite herb? What lights you?
I love dandelion because I think it's a really good example of just the power of plants and herbs. And when you look at it, different parts of the plant do different jobs. So, you can eat the flower, for example, you can use the leaves, you can use the roots, and different parts of them have different jobs. I think it's a really good example as well of how, so for example, a lot of us know that, we grew up learning that dandelions make you pee. So they're basically, dandelion is a very good diuretic. It's probably one of nature's best diuretics, and that's why the French call it pissenlit, which is basically piss in the bed, which is
piss in the bed. That's what we.
That's
and if you got burned years ago, you cut the stem and you'd rub it onto something.
That's right. There's a latex sap in there which will help to heal the skin. But so basically, one of the reasons though that I think it's a really good illustration is because diuretics, obviously they make you shed water, they make you pee more, which is really good because it helps you to release toxins from the system. Basically though, if you're given a drug, a diuretic pill, one of the things that you have to be really mindful of and that doctors will keep an eye on is your potassium levels. Because you're going to be peeing out potassium as you're increasing your urine output. But guess what dandelions are really, really rich in? Potassium. So basically, if you're using your dandelion, your leaves of your dandelion, for example, as a diuretic, you are also ingesting extra amounts of potassium to help balance that out. So it's like the plants have thought of everything already in advance. So they have the answers, they have all the aspects. So
like the body knows what to do. The plants know what to do. Stop getting in the fucking way. Get out of your own way.
Exactly. So it's like, for example, when you think about it, a huge percentage of drugs are actually synthetic forms that are modeled on molecules that have been extracted from plants, or elements that have been extracted from plants. But when you take that one thing away from the plant, when you divorce it from the rest of the plant, you're lacking all the other balancing things that plant is bringing. So dandelion is a really good example of that, because there you have your diuretic, but the plant at the same time is giving you the potassium that you need. So in other words, your side effects are a lot less with plants generally, because they are giving you the balance of whatever that mechanism that plant is bringing. It's bringing you the other things too to help balance that effect in your system. So yeah, I just think dandelion is a really good illustration of that. And the other thing is that I really do believe nature has the answers for us, and it tends to, it is said that plants tend to grow around the household. If somebody in a household needs something, the plant tends to appear, it tends to pop up. So obviously we only have to look outside our doors to look how many dandelions are growing everywhere, and I think all humans could really benefit from taking dandelions every day.
Could we go out and pick dandelions and cook them, boil them?
Absolutely. So again, it's sort of about the time of the year. Now actually dandelion is one of the longest flowering plants. It flowers through the whole summer, like actually from about February all the way through to the end of the summer. But the tastiest parts, or the nicest, easiest parts to eat, let's say in a salad, are the younger leaves. So they're softer, they're less bitter.
Oh, you mean the greens off them, not exactly
the greens, so that's
the yellow
leaves.
stem?
Well, so there's the flower, which is the yellow bit.
Yeah.
Then there's the stem. Then there's the leaf, which is the bit that has the teeth. So dent de lion, again, lion's teeth.
Right.
So the dandelion got its name because the leaves look like the teeth of a lion. So the leaves, so they taste best when you pick the little small younger leaves. And then the roots, you can dig up the roots, and then you clean them, you dry them, and then you grind them up, and then that you can make kind of like a coffee substitute. So again, it's really rich in nutrients. So so you can, and you can eat the older ones as well, but they're just not as tasty, and they're not as they're not as palatable, let's say, as the smaller, the younger leaves. But you can put them in your smoothie, you can dry them and make a tea, or you can put them literally straight into your hot water and make a tea. You can put them on your salad, you can fry them in the pan, you can do anything you want.
Deadly. I love the fact that you have in here at the end, one gorilla hug.
Yeah, because that's it's the love.
It's a hug in a bag. It's a nutritional hug in a bag.
Yeah,
It's absolutely fantastic. I love
because
the
it's
cover.
made with love.
It's made, everything you seem to do comes from a place of love. You're so enthusiastic about it. You're so like in love with what you do. It's palatable sitting here. And like, I'm sitting here listening to how it's all linked. Like, what you said about the skin being able to heal itself, plants, knowing what to do. We innately know what to do once we get out of the way, It's incredible. What's your, if you have one, a health habit or a go-to thing that you just absolutely swear by? What's your go-to thing? I'm probably putting you on the spot with
You
that
are,
one.
and I've got quite a few. And again, it changes. So, personally for me, it's how I feel on that day. How I feel in those days or on that day. I'll fluctuate between different things. For me, probably, what is the thing that every day that I do, almost every day, that is really kind of core part of my whole practice and system?
Perfect.
Sea swimming. Swimming in the sea for me is a huge thing. It absolutely, no matter what I have getting into that water, in my mind, in my body, whatever, when I get out, I don't have it anymore. That is a real reset. Also, breathing, meditation. I'm incorporating that way more now than I used to. Every morning I do at least sort of 20 minutes to half an hour. Not always in the morning, but I do try to do it every day, and that's really, really important. At the moment, I am taking, again, the herbs change and vary. Sometimes I take nothing, sometimes I take 5 things. One herb that I absolutely love at the moment is Bacopa monieri, which is really beneficial to the brain. So I know you and I talked briefly at another time about what's called nootropics. That term that actually means mind bending. That's where the word comes from. It was coined by a Romanian scientist in 1972, I think. Bacopa I find really beneficial just for clarity in the mind. So that's one of the things I'm just taking at the moment that I really like. Dandelion I probably take most days as well. And I take gorilla every day, and I make a green smoothie.
Do you go and get some dandelion, or do you?
I actually take it either, sometimes I get it.
To this?
Or to that, or as a tincture. Sometimes I will take it as a tincture. But yeah, so they're probably...
They're your go-to things.
They're my go-to things. Yoga Nidra.
Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is lovely practice.
I find it fabulous.
Yeah.
Just 15 minutes.
But like what you said at the start, Jan, find something that brings you into a state of balance, ease, to support homeostasis. Start to help the body do what it needs to do, whether it be yoga nidra or breathwork, sea swimming. I was moving through, when I say moving through, some energy, stress hormones were trying to rise itself up in me the last, say, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I just kept getting called to go to the sea, go to the sea, go. Do you remember you and I went for a coffee there 2 weeks ago? And I said, once I come out here, I'm going to go to Sea Point.
Yeah.
I'm not a big sea swimmer, but just something was saying me, get in the cold sea, get in the cold sea.
And how did you feel?
Oh, beautiful. I stayed in for 7 minutes. I was shaking, but that's what the body was asking me to do. Normally say, no, I don't have time, I got to do something. No, the body was saying, get in the cold sea. And then for the next, I think I've done 3 days that week or 2 days that week and once this week. It just feels beautiful. It's lovely for the nervous system. You have the heat shock proteins, you have all that kind of jimmy jazz. And then the skin is super absorbent. So absorbs all that minerals from the seaweed. We didn't get into seaweed and iodine and...
Yeah. And, when you think about it, seawater is exactly the same as your blood, apart from, obviously, much higher salt in the seawater and much higher iron in the blood. But otherwise, those liquids are the same.
Wow. And then obviously the like if you get seaweed and iodine, it's good for the system. Before I forget, will you come back on? Because we didn't tap into like.
No, I know there's a lot.
There's so much more, like the vitamins, the minerals, like even getting into the menopause for women and other minerals. Could we maybe dedicate the next episode to just herbs and minerals, like really
and
like
specific topics maybe where we can pick some particular topics that people might, like you said, menopause or and we can pick certain herbs and nutrients.
So when we get off this interview, we'll put a date in the diary. I will put questions into the group that we're in. I'll put questions out there. If there's anything that you'd like Jan to cover, any topic or any supplements you want to know about or you're taking, or let's be guided by that. But then also we will sit down and have a natter about what we could cover.
Happily.
This is incredible. I was sitting here so excited. I was looking at my watch thinking, I wish this thing would slow down. I wish it'd slow down. There's so much involved in it. But it's not to bamboozle people with. It's to enlighten and help support. And then you're informed, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you just know that there are options there that are, that you don't have to necessarily take drugs, or that you can make choices every day that really make an impact. That's why, for example, I know we're nearly out of time, but we created a project called the Herb Patch Project as well, which is in primary schools. And I created that along with the IRH, which is the Irish Register of Herbalists, which is our professional body. And the purpose of that was really to just so that kids have that awareness that actually, oh my goodness, like peppermint tea can help my tummy, or that like rosemary helps me remember my spellings, so they're just getting that thought, so that when they grow up they'll go, oh, actually I don't need to reach necessarily for a Rennie or whatever. I can actually use my peppermint tea. So that project is basically using herb gardens to help kids learn their English and their Irish and their maths, but they're doing it using the herb patch outside.
Using the law of association.
Exactly, that's exactly it. So it's just really just reminding ourselves that actually, there's this really rich world of nature all around us, and it has so many answers and so many solutions, and it wants to work with us. It's
Would you think we're going into an era now that it's starting to reverse, as in we're moving away from the medical model, the industrial way of doing things and looking at things, and it's going back to the kind of the nature and the plants and the holistic?
I do think so.
I
do
feel
think
it that
it's
way.
starting to shift, and I think what's happening. First of all, I think people are just becoming aware that there are other answers. There's a little bit more openness coming to both models working together, because I think that's the best way. Each, the natural model and the conventional model have a lot to bring.
Yeah.
So it's about, working alongside each other. And one of the happiest moments for me, I just love this. So when I start to see, for example, I had a client a few years ago, and she was a medical student, and now she's practicing. So only about 3 weeks ago, one of her patients came in my door, and she said, oh, such and such a person recommended that I come here. And I was just so thrilled. I'm like, oh yes, it is definitely starting to happen. So where you have more, more GPs being open and learning, some of the younger doctors are just learning more about natural approaches as well, and that's amazing.
Before we move and head off into a different direction, have you any success stories that you'd like to share with me, like that you were like, wow, that just like when you don't have to disclose the information, but maybe some things that you've worked with people and you thought, wow, that's incredible what we've done there?
You're putting me on the spot again now here. I have to say, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but it's happening all the time. It's happening all the time. Just for me, the win is when the person just comes in and says, I feel so much better. I just, my mood has changed, or I don't have those symptoms anymore. And often people forget what they came with in the first place. They forget about those symptoms. So I'm trying to think, can I think of any particular person?
You've nailed it on the head with like people coming in and they feel better. And that's what this is all about, is helping people to feel better and to reconnect. Well, you've never been disconnected from feeling better, but sometimes it's a felt sense that I'm not connected, but I feel good.
I mean, if you just, I suppose, link it back to one of the topics, because I'm just thinking, for example, I have had a number of women who, for example, have had osteoporosis and who have actually reversed that. So then, on a future DEXA scan, it has actually gone in the opposite direction. And, that's happened numerous times. So it is a continuous thing, to be honest.
So you've
that people feel
improved
better
bone density, i.e. through the vitamins.
by making those changes,
the vitamins, the minerals, the physical movement, the bouncing on the thing, walking, as you said. Not only does the stomach and the muscles in there, the gut biome, it actually the pulling the muscle on the bone and all of that, it works in collaboration. And then they get the health. They get the health markers improved.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, because I'm just trying to pick specific examples of, I remember a girl who came to me, she was 26, and she had rheumatoid arthritis was her diagnosis, and she had been through really like almost 2 years of treatments, and she was just at the point, and I think her consultant wanted to put her on methotrexate, which is quite a powerful drug, and she was just wanting to see was there anything that she could do. So we worked together. We discovered that she had a gluten intolerance, which was a huge thing, and she completely reversed her rheumatoid arthritis. She didn't have to take that drug, and then about 6 months ago, she came in and said that she is like no longer in the system. She's been completely discharged and stuff, that it's just, she doesn't have that anymore. So
wow,
that's just one example of many. It's natural medicine is just amazing.
You're a great champion for it, and like what I said at the start, and without blowing smoke up your back, you do it with love, you do it with passion, and that goes into your gorilla, that goes into your analysis when you work with people, and then when you sit with them, it just oozes from you. It's quite telling, So
it's not a choice for me, in the sense of, it's not like I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna just go and do this and be passionate. It just is.
There's no other way.
There's no other way. I had to do this. I had to change my career. I had to go back and study. I had to do it. I just couldn't not. I couldn't not. So.
Wow. If people want to buy this from you, if people want to work with you, how can they find you? How can they find this? Where do they go?
Okay, so Gorilla, the website is feedyourgorilla.com.
I'll put the link in the show notes. So
feed your gorilla. So in other words,
feed your gorilla.
We are 98% the same DNA as gorillas, and gorillas are the second strongest animal apart from the African bush elephant. So, and they are completely fed only on fruit and veg that are all around them. So that was really the idea. Let's feed our inner gorilla, because we have similar DNA, and build strong, healthy bodies. So feedyourgorilla.com, and then to contact me, my website is C-Point Naturopath. That's NATUROPATH.com. You would put the link on.
I'll put the links for this, your services, and anything else. Yeah. I ask a question at the end. What's the one thing out of all of this interview, this chat that we had, that you'd like people to take away with? Or if you want, is there one piece of wisdom that you want to share with some, whatever suits you?
I just want them to remember that the body is always moving towards wholeness, and that the choices we make every day about what we put into our body, the thoughts we think, what we surround ourselves with have such an impact on that whole process, and it's within our control. That's the thing. A lot of it is within our control, because often we think that we have no control over it. You know what I mean? We give our power away to the doctor or we think, oh, whereas we really do have so much control in our everyday on the things that we do and the impact that they have.
Wow. So I love that whole wholeness approach, and it's fascinating. I had an interview with my daughter, the last interview, and it was from wholeness to wholeness, and she's a yoga teacher, and that was the theme with her. It was just all about wholeness, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the sleeping, the eating, the thinking.
Yeah.
Everything you spoke about today. That's the way forward.
I think it is. And one thing that we didn't mention, but it is actually written in large letters in my office on the wall, which is, what are you grateful for? So gratitude is such a huge part as well of all of this that we just didn't mention, but it is really, really important. So generally...
It's not too late. It's not too late. Tell me 3 things you're grateful for.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm really grateful for this opportunity to
I'm
sit
grateful
with
for
you.
this.
I'm so grateful.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love this. I fucking love this.
So I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
I am really grateful for the Like Being group and that sort of positivity, that group that we are both part of, which is very interesting. I'm so grateful for nature. I'm so grateful for plants and herbs. I nearly will start crying because...
I nearly start crying.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I just tears start coming to my eyes.
They have so much to bring. And
when
I just
love
see
moved
their
through
impact.
you, there moved through me.
Yeah.
See the impact, go on.
I see their impact on people every single day in clinic, and they not only work physiologically, so chemically in our body, they work emotionally, they work spiritually, they work on an incredibly deep level, because plants are alive, they're beings. And I'm just so grateful for the fact that they're there and that I get to work with them, and I just, we're so blessed that they are there, because they have so much to bring.
Wow. 3 things you're grateful for.
Was that 3 things?
Yeah. Do you want to throw another one now? Anything else?
I'm just grateful for life, to be alive. And to get to navigate every day, to get to choose a different way of being, and the learning, the learning and the learning every day, the new awareness, the learning to make better choices in our thinking. I'm grateful for that.
I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you to get this opportunity to sit down with somebody, not just as a naturopath, but somebody that loves it so much and is interested, passionate, and really genuinely, wholeheartedly wants to help and share that with the world. I got that in the meditation this morning. I turned in and just you popped into my mind, and I got excited about this. Like, just excited that I get to sit down and listen to you and then talk about this stuff and then share with people. How brilliant is that? I'm so grateful for, as you said, the Light Being group, my girlfriend Brownie, the love that's in our life, the love that's in this room. Like, life is really good, and I'm like you. I'm grateful for the path that I'm on, this work that I do with people. I'm grateful to do that, whether it's the breathwork, whether it's the chats, whether it's it's a blessing, isn't it?
Such a blessing.
Like, that people will come and sit with us and let us help them.
And vice versa, they help us too. So it's an interchange. It's, excuse me, I learned so much from the people who come and sit with me in clinic, and it's just this interchange.
It's an equal exchange. I used to say that with patients in the hospital. They used to thank me, oh, thanks for doing it. And I'm like, you wouldn't believe how much inspiration and motivation and passion I get from you just showing up. This is an equal exchange.
Yeah.
Your endeavour, your resilience to do your rehab, really inspires me to keep going, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
So thanks so much. I can't
Thank
wait
you,
to
Matt.
get you back on again. This was Jan's first podcast.
Yes.
And she absolutely smashed it. Like, you are brilliant. I loved it. I really did. I just was so passionate about this stuff. Guys, check out this. I'll put the links in the show notes. If you want to get this, I'm going to try it. And then when we come back on again, I'll talk about it. So thanks for giving me this.
You're welcome.
As always, I want to thank some people. My first thank is to Niall Reilly from Rooney and Media Graphics. He's my main man. He's been with me from the get-go. If you need any graphic design work done, check him out. Speedy return, AA class service. He's just the best. I know I'm biased, he's my mate, but I'm telling you, he's just the best. Shannon's Hope Line, the girls doing amazing work in grassroots mental health here in the Liberties. I want to give a shout out to the guys upstairs, the Liberties Community Project. Have given me a home for the last couple of months. I love it here, so thanks to Austin. And a shout out to Ivan and the Digital Hub, who have been supporting my work over the last number of years. I can't thank them enough. The Liberties is like the gift that keeps on giving. I forgot to put my phone. I hope I can't hear that beeping in the background. But who cares?
Exactly.
No one cares. Love is in the room. Please share this with family and friends. It's a really vital, important conversation. It's bringing awareness to the options that's out there. If you're having difficulties around osteoporosis, whether it's mental health, whether it's skin, whether it's hormonal, whether it's physical, Jan is giving you options. You can come to her. There's other ways of doing things, because sometimes when we go through some stuff, we have blinkers on and we think that is the only way. But what we're hoping to do here today is to broaden your consciousness that there's many, many different options. So please share that with family and friends. If you like the interview, if you want to know more about the work that I do, you can check out my website, www.magicminds.ie, for the work that I do, breathwork, one-to-ones I do with people, and the workshops and stuff that I do. I think that's it, isn't it?
I think so.
That's a whole lot
so
of
much,
information.
Matt.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for all the kind words I get about the work that I do. It means a lot. This, for me, like Jan's work, is a labour of love. It's something we love to do. Have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I will run, I will climb, I will soar. I'm undefeated. Oh, jumping out of my skin, pull the cord. Yeah, I believe it. Oh, the past is everything we were. Don't make us who we are. So I'll dream until I make it real, and all I see is stars. It's not until you fall that you fly. When your dreams come alive, you're unstoppable. Take a shot, chase the sun, find the beautiful. We will glow in the dark, turning dust to gold, and we'll dream impossible. Possible. And we'll dream impossible. I will chase, I will reach, I will fly until I'm breaking out my cage like a bird in the night. I know I'm changing into something big, better than before. And if it takes 1,000 lives, then it's worth fighting for. It's not until you fall that you fly. When your dreams come alive, you're unstoppable. Take a shot, chase the sun, find the beautiful. We will go in the dark, turning dust to gold, and we'll dream